I'm going to now play a game for you called Blind Line. I'm going to begin telling you a story, but you can see I have these pieces of paper in my hand. And my partner in crime here, Fred, who is off camera, has written sentences and statements on these lines. Now, I have not seen them yet, so I'm going to tell a story, but periodically I'm going to pause, look at one of these lines, and read it as if it's the next word I say.
Shuffle them up.
I will shuffle them up a little bit to make sure they're out of order. And then I have to justify and incorporate that line and then continue the story. So, here we go. John and Mary had been married for a very long time, but they had recently been going through some marital troubles. One morning, at the kitchen table during breakfast, John looked up at Mary and said, "When in Russia, do as the Russians do." Mary was startled by this. She dropped the glass to the floor and it shattered. She looked at John and said, "How did you know that I had been to Russia? I thought I kept that hidden from you." John looked at her and said, "Jerry made a beeline to the kitchen. He said, when you were having sex with Jerry in our house, when you thought I was not here, I was hiding downstairs, and that guy Jerry you're having sex with, he ran right to the kitchen when I saw him, and that's when I started piecing it together, that you were never actually in Russia on business, but rather you were meeting Jerry." Mary looked at John and with sadness said to him, "Where have all the soufflés gone?" When their first date, John and Mary had met at a French restaurant and they had these beautiful soufflés. And the soufflé became the metaphor for their love. And she looked at John and said, "Where have the soufflés gone?" And John only had one thing to say in return. And that was, she has a capacity to annoy, disgust, and disgrace others. And she was referring to Mary. He was so disgusted with her, he refused to speak directly to her, only referring to her in the third person. Mary picked up the phone, called her lawyer, and said, "Has anyone ever told you you look like Nixon?" And the lawyer was flattered. He said, "Well, when I was younger, I used to look like Nixon, and people don't think that about me anymore." And Mary said, "Well, I have a Nixon fetish, so I'm going to come over to your office right now, and you're going to get me a divorce, and then you or I are going to get married." And as Mary walked out the door to have a rendezvous with her lawyer, who happened to be Jerry, as fate would have it, John watched her go, thinking to himself, "Eating pumpkin pie enhances your bowling ability, and I got a lot of bowling to do now." Alright, so that is Blind Line. This is also an incredibly fun game both to play and to watch, and it's a good way you can incorporate your family and friends who don't want to play improv games with you, but maybe want to participate. You can actually just have them write these out.
I think you need to read a few of those other lines that weren't used just because I think
yes, here's what you've missed out on. Is Richard Burton really dead? Is it faster to
Toledo?
Is it faster to Toledo rather than by bus? Is it faster to Toledo rather than... That's one of those that doesn't make sense, but you gotta make it work. And rock the cradle that brung ya, which would have worked well in this story. But so you can have your friends, relatives, colleagues write some of these things out for you, and you can incorporate them on your own. Now the key here is to say the line, but don't just say the line and ignore it and move on. The key is to say the line, explain why that person said that. So when Mary picked up the phone and said, "Has anyone ever told you you look like Nixon?" Some people would be tempted to say, the lawyer didn't know what she was talking about, so he said, "Mary, why are you calling?"
But that's a yes but.
That's a yes but. It's completely ignoring the advice or the offer. So the key is to explain why she said that, and then as best you can, weave that into the story. That's really what this game is about. It's about taking something completely random and spontaneous, justifying it, and then weaving it into whatever you're doing. Now, from a business or professional context, this is really about collaboration, whether it's with a colleague or with a potential client. They're going to throw curveballs at you. You don't want to butt heads with them. Rather, you want to take what they say, weave it in, make sense, and then use that throughout. And especially collaborations. Fred and I are on a lot of these videos together. If you're working with someone, sometimes you'll say different things, and you never want to appear in front of whether it's an audience or clients or whoever, as if you're at odds with your people on your team. So this is a great way. When someone throws something you're not 100% sure about, you don't make them wrong. You just explain it, weave it in, and then move it in the direction you want it to go.